dawn is breaking, waves are coming in, and everybody here standing in wonder beneath the rain and the thunder, rising in love.
Welcome to Nourish Your Soul, where collective consciousness meets to transform reality. Expect a miracle. It really is that simple. Just open up, take a deep breath, just allow and just surrender, and then through that grace of allowing, we simply can experience miracles and be witness to them. So today I'm honored to bring a special guest on the show. Her name is Anne and Lindyberg. Is that how you say it?
Yes, Lindyberg.
Lindyberg, okay, Anne Lindyberg. And she's a master level psychologist with me today. I met her through the Bashar group. And this is a segment that is dedicated to conversations in consciousness and knowing ourselves and enacting on my excitement. She had made a post representative of having quit her job, her day job, to act on her highest excitement and move forward in following her heart's desire. And so I was just inspired myself that that would be a good story worth sharing. So, in acting on our excitement, because Bashar recommends that, is to live your passion, your excitement to the best of your ability with zero insistence on any particular outcome. And it's really been working out well for me, and I see that it is for you as well. And so tell us a little bit about your background and how you got when you first came across the Bashar material.
Well, okay. Let's see. It's hard to say where to start. In 2015, I had just moved from New York State, where I had lived pretty much my whole life, to Fairfield, Iowa, to make a big change in my life. And like many times that we are following our excitement and we make a big change, sometimes we have challenges, and it can even feel like we're really in the soup sometimes. I'm just going to say that's what it was like for me. But I look back on it now, and I'm really grateful for the challenges. And one of the things that they allowed me to do was I was just kind of poking around, figuring out what I wanted to do next, and I thought I wanted to start a podcast, and a podcast about becoming more conscious here in Fairfield, Iowa, which is where I'm now living. And I mentioned this to the local radio station owner, and he was really nice, and he said, oh, why don't you listen to this guy who lives in town who did Buddha at the Gas Pump, his podcast. And it's Rick Archer, very well-known, big podcast. And I was like, okay, well, thanks for the good advice. And when I looked up Buddha at the Gas Pump, I, at the time, wasn't terribly interested in listening and learning all about someone else's podcast. So I just said, which is the most popular episode that he has? And I could find that. And it was this one that was an interview with Darryl Anka. And so it was a 2-hour episode, and I listened to all 2 hours just raptly. And then once I heard Darryl's story, I absolutely had to see what Bashar was like, because he didn't appear on the podcast. It was just Darryl. And so they kept talking about, well, can you do Bashar's voice? And Darryl's like, no, I can't. And I'm like, well, what's Bashar's voice? So I went on YouTube, and that's how I found Bashar. And I was like, I was charmed. I had never really paid much attention to channeling. I had no opinions of aliens outside of Star Trek. So it just was like, oh, wow. Anyway, that's my introduction to Bashar.
That's awesome. So for those of us that are tuning in, our listeners that aren't familiar with Bashar, it's bashar.org. That's BASHAR.org, where you can check out and learn more about him. And that is Darryl Anka, who's actually channels the being called Bashar, which is basically 3,000 years into our future. And this is basically Darryl himself is an aspect of Bashar as one of his incarnations. So, and he happens to be the messenger and the channel that's bringing us wonderful information on acting on our excitement, which is one of the fundamentals, the tools. So what is your project? You have a project that you are working on. I'd love to hear about this, and you're launching for your new, acting on your excitement. So,
well, yeah, it's funny because my journey to figure out why I'm here and what I'm supposed to be doing began way before 2015. I mean, probably my whole life if I think about it, but I think I was around 30 when I started to get most interested in spirituality and self-connection. And it was through the work of Donald Epstein, who's a chiropractor. He does network spinal analysis, and it was his chiropractors that introduced me to the idea that until we're connected to ourself, truly connected to ourself, whatever we do in the world is kind of just like flailing. It's not going to be effective. It's not going to please us. It's not going to lead to our happiness. And that sounded pretty accurate. I mean, a lot of my life had felt like flailing at various times. And so when I got this kind of chiropractic care, I realized experientially that this was true. I felt it to be true as I physically was encouraged to make the connection through the gentle touch. I had spiritual experiences, a few, but mostly it was experiences with myself, and that was obvious to me. So that influenced, like, who do I want to be? What do I want to do in life? And then around 2016, I just had this epiphany one night that I wanted to become more connected, and that was all I needed to do. I was thinking about becoming connected as a means to do other things, and I was like, oh, wait, I literally woke up at 4 in the morning, and I was like, connection is all there is. Oh, wow. So, yeah, that was a pivotal moment, and I, at 4 in the morning, immediately started searching for the domain and found it and bought it. It was very funny, connectionis.com. And then I was left with, well, okay, so what do I want to do with this knowledge? How do I want to help? I don't know. How do I want to express it, I guess, in the world? And, I mean, there are a lot of ways. And I was already trained to do mental health counseling, and I was receiving advanced training in the Virginia Satir method. And one of the serendipitous things is Virginia Satir's method and herself as a theoretician, she's very spiritual, and her work is very harmonious with Donald Epstein's work involving connection. Virginia believes that the more connected the person, the better the quality of experience they have and have for others. So then I thought, well, who should I work with? How can I have the greatest impact? And I thought, well, it would be really nice to help kids get connected. But really, the best people to impact children are their parents, because that's just huge. I'm a parent myself, and I noticed that any time other adults tried to go around the parents to connect with kids, it could be good, but it was always second best. It was always better if you could be in harmony with the children's parents, because the children really are of their parents. And so in my work, I started to attract people who were parents. Sometimes they were coming to me because they were having problems with their kids, and sometimes they were coming with their own problems. But when I started to help them get connected with themselves, one of the byproducts was that their children seemed to do better without any intervention at all. And so I talked with a lot of people. I talked to my own kids, especially my son. He was very encouraging. And he said, you know, you got to do what you know. So I think it might have even been my son Matt's idea that I start an internet parenting support group for parents of children. So.
Awesome. So it's a project that helps parents become better parents.
Yeah, it actually does. That's the idea, but it also takes care of the parent first. You know, and part of I'm influenced by customer service in this. Jay Rosenbluth wrote a really good customer service book called The Customer Comes Second, and what he was trying to say was your employees come first. Give your employees what they need because they're going to be giving to your customer. And it's the same with parents. My job, I feel, is to be the parent advocate, to give the parent what they need with a full knowledge of what they're doing with children. I mean, I've had children, and I have some knowledge of what it is to be a parent, although, you know, it's not necessary even to have that experience to be a good parent advocate. So I help parents be better selves, and through that, they become better for their children. So
absolutely,
it's kind of,
I love it. Feels like by helping the parents connect with themselves more, then they can be more present to their children. And actually that begins with interrupting projections so that they're not projecting on their children like expectations of, you know, of course we might have a desire for them to do their homework or to have some chores which help them with, you know, responsibilities. But at the same time, it's like, are we really present and showing up for our children? I know as a parent myself, I mean, my son is now, you know, in his 20s, but when he was little, he used to act out, and so I did some research and study on being a better parent myself and rewarding positive behavior, and I learned that children, the only reason they act out is they're acting out for attention. So basically it's a cry for love. So basically I took my son to the park and I swung him on the swings, and I just expressed to him that you don't have to yell and scream to get my attention, that I just want you to tell me. Just tell me that you want mommy time, and then I will stop what I'm doing and I will give you my undivided attention. And that's really what I've discovered in my own parenting is, and also as a substitute teacher, I've done substitute teaching from ages, actually from, you know, 2 years old all the way up to 8 years. I was in a daycare facility where I actually did substitute teaching. I was one of those floater teachers where I went from different ages. But what I discovered was that children really want that one-on-one interaction to be like valued and just heard and listened to. And when we can do that, then there's so much more harmony that happens in the relationship.
Children really do want interaction with adults, specifically connected adults, but they'll take whatever they can get because they're young and you know, they have needs. So, yeah, it's exciting. I've substitute taught as well. What an adventure! I like the high schoolers myself. I don't know, although I substitute taught for pre-K all the way up to high school. So.
Yeah, I did at high school as well. It was that one. I don't know. It was okay. It wasn't as fun, but anyway, I liked the younger.
It's a totally different group of needs. You know, they're still kids, but it's just a different developmental stage. And people, you know, educators and teachers, they love the different stages. So that's cool. I happen to really like them all, although. Yeah, I meant to float around a little bit. So, yeah.
So you have a website called connectionis.com, and then you have the project for parents. I guess, what's the next thing, or what's the goal, the outcome, like, that you foresee, like, I don't know, for the next 3 years? Do you have a projected goal that you would like to reach? Tell us about that.
Well, the immediate goal is to get my parenting support group, my online parenting support group launched. And that will probably, there's not evidence of that on connectionis.com right now. Connectionis.com is just me as a therapist in Iowa or a coach nationally or internationally. I'm only licensed to do mental health counseling in the state of Iowa, so anyone who wanted to see me for that would have to come here. I can't even do it on Skype because you have to be licensed in the place where the client is sitting in order to do counseling via Skype. I can do coaching via Skype, and actually I agree with the restrictions. If someone really needs a therapist, the therapist ought to be familiar with the local requirements or the local resources for the client nearby. And so anyway, yeah, that's what Connection is, just gives a little more information about me and my background and my credentials. And I have received training in Satir Transformational Systemic Therapy, levels 1 and 2, through the Satir Institute of the Pacific. That's really the meat of my coaching business as well. I find the Satir method to be just extremely robust. I also got training in EMDR, which is a trauma therapy. And in my therapy work, I like to combine the methods a bit, which has been very effective, although again, with coaching, I wouldn't be using EMDR. So
that's meditation too, right, that you're talking about?
No, EMDR is a type of trauma therapy. Some people think it's a little bit like hypnosis, but it isn't. It utilizes the right and left side of the brain. I guess here's what researchers found out is that people who were exposed to trauma, same trauma, different people, the ones that did better and didn't get PTSD, for example, they were moving their eyes back and forth more rapidly than people who wound up traumatized, who tended to be kind of focused. And so the method was developed, Francine Shapiro, I believe, using eye movements. So the EMDR therapist would hold up their fingers and they would move back and forth quickly. Yeah, not like the slow hypnotic thing, but the back and forth movement was to generate the bilateral stimulation using the eyes. We can use tapping now. I tap on the knees, or I have these little buzzies that you can hold that go bzz, 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 back and forth. And that provides the bilateral stimulation to the brain so that while you're processing with the therapist or the coach, the traumatic memory is taken from the limbic brain, which is the mammalian brain right here, and it's rewritten into the neocortex where you have linguistic access to it. And once you have linguistic access to the memory, it's not as traumatizing. When it's in your limbic brain, your emotional brain, that's when it comes out and gives symptoms of PTSD. So, yeah, EMDR is a trauma therapy method. It's not a meditation. Yeah.
Well, the other training though that you mentioned that's from Julia, isn't that meditation?
No, I'm not familiar with Julia.
I guess I'm mispronouncing her name then. The lady that when you moved to Iowa to do the training, what is that called again?
Oh, transcendental meditation?
Well, there was another type of a term that you used.
Satir Transformational Systemic Therapy?
Yeah,
oh, Virginia Satir. Oh, gotcha. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, Virginia Satir's method does seem to be a little bit more meditative sometimes. There's some writing exercises I've developed a lot according to the method, and somewhat meditative, even along the lines of Byron Katie's writing exercises being somewhat meditative.
Okay, so I'm just hoping for our listeners that don't know anything about what that is to just give a description, because I have no clue what it is exactly.
Okay. Okay. Well, Virginia Satir was a lady who was born in Wisconsin in the early 20th century, and she was known as the mother of family therapy. She got a master's in social work in the 50s, and then she began working as a therapist immediately with families in their homes. And she kind of joined the community of other therapists, even though they were all men and they all had doctorates or MDs. and as a master social worker, and which is pretty major to develop your own theory as a woman and a only master social worker, but that's exactly what she did. And because her methods were very powerful and they seemed to work, she attracted a whole team of people who helped her develop the Satir model, named after herself, Virginia Satir. And so
what does the Satir model look like? So like,
well,
that says, okay, I want to reach out to Anne and see about this. What are we doing exactly?
Well, the basis of the model is that each person is like an iceberg. You only see about 10% of the person. We see what we can observe. And most of the person is hidden. It's beneath the surface of the iceberg, to use the iceberg metaphor. And these parts that are hidden are really the parts that are driving everything about our behavior and ourself. They include our feelings about our feelings, our thoughts and beliefs, which she calls the perceptual arena, our expectations, which is a subset of perceptions, but it includes expectations of other people, what the other people expect of us, and what we expect of ourselves. And then also our yearnings. That's another important part of the iceberg. Yearnings are our deep-seated, universal wants and desires, like to be loved or to be contributing, to be heard, to be wanted, to belong. Those are part of the iceberg. And then at the core of the iceberg, or the base, is the self. And this is one area where Virginia was, when I heard Bashar talk about the indestructible core, that was very resonant for me, because Virginia says your self is your core, and it is the core of your strength, the center of your strength, and we can conceptualize of that any way that pleases us. Religious people sometimes conceptualize it as a soul, but even people who are atheists and don't think that there's anything beyond this existence can conceptualize of the self as being the source of their strength. And so yeah, it's all built around, Virginia's method is built around strengthening the individual by helping them connect more to the parts of their own iceberg. So let's just say I have a client who comes in and she's having trouble with her husband or something, and she would say, well, I'm here because, you know, he won't stop drinking. And so superficially it seems like the problem is outside of her. And I might say, well, what kind of feelings come up when he's been drinking? So it's very subtle. I don't disagree with the client ever, well, not often anyway, but I might just gently guide them to explore their own experience by answering my questions. My questions would be about their iceberg. Well, tell me how that made you feel. Tell me what you believe about that. Tell me what you're yearning for. Tell me what you expect of him. What do you expect of yourself? That sort of thing.
Like, it reminds me of the book, The 4 Love Languages.
Oh, yeah. I like the John Chapman stuff. That is who it is, right? I know.
I believe that is John Chapman. I just know the 4 languages. Some individuals need touch, and others need a gift of, some kind of affirmation of self-love. It's like if someone gives them something, then that's like recognizing them. And at the deepest core level, I always like to often share it as there's only 2 things that people really actually desire, anything actually, thoughts themselves, is just to be acknowledged and to be loved. And so if we can just look at that and acknowledge it, and then just to love it for what it is, then we're not...
Well, you've gotten right to the core of the yearnings, which are a very, very important part of the iceberg and often neglected in therapy and in coaching. Our yearnings, when we connect with them, they program how we want our life to be. So if you want to be heard and you want to be appreciated and loved, then you might not be kind of aware of it if you're focusing on the dissatisfaction in your feelings. So that's one thing that my method helps to do, is to acknowledge it all and to help connect with the yearnings. And once you've validated the feelings, because if someone comes in and they say, oh yeah, my husband drinks and then he beats me, and yes, I'm angry and I'm scared and I'm disgusted, just talking about those feelings and saying, I'm angry, I'm scared, I'm disgusted, and having someone say, I hear you. I hear that you're angry and scared and disgusted. Once those feelings have been acknowledged, they simmer down and they stop becoming the source of our actions, and we can act more from what we yearn for. Like if we yearn for connection and we yearn to be loved, then we get more connected with that. We walk out, the feelings aren't pushing us anymore, we're not angry, and so we're better able to make a connected decision. Although that usually doesn't happen using reasoning. Usually the brain is the servant and the heart where the connection occurs is the master. And the brain doesn't even like to be the master. It'll do it, but it doesn't do a very good job, and I think it stresses itself out. It wants a good, strong message from the heart, and then it says, oh, okay, I'll use my super smartness to make this work out in an exciting way, and then off you go.
Exactly. That's well said. I love how you shared that. The Way of Mastery teachings that one of my teachers from the book, I'll just go ahead and show our viewers that might be watching this, but there's this book that you can get. It's called The Way of Mastery, and it's got 3 different parts to it. There at the bottom, the way of the heart, the way of transformation, and the way of knowing. And he talks. It's Yeshua, Jesus. This book is written. It took 3 years by a being called J.M. And he says exactly what you just said. Is that the heart is the master, and that the mind was never intended to be the master, but rather the humble servant of the heart.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we are like being present for our thoughts and shifting collectively in the sense that we are, the mind is sort of a guide, but we have to direct it. And Yeshua says, ask and you shall receive, and to when you call upon, you ask, and so that's part of that, directing, commanding presence of like, this is like what you're like, use our free will in a way that is serving life and serving love, and to follow our heart, and at the same time to have the ability to quiet ourselves enough to be able to hear the subtle nuances of our spirit, of our heart.
I think I've heard of The Way of Mastery. I haven't reviewed it, but I have heard of it.
Beautiful. So this is exciting work that you're doing, that you're launching. I'm really excited to do a follow-up as well, and maybe get some parents, on here that maybe want to share, testimonials or benefits that they may have received.
That'd be exciting. Yeah, I would like that. Perhaps they will too.
Absolutely. So I love that you brought up the indestructible core. Bashar has a session actually titled that listeners can go and check out, and I'll be sure to put the link in the comments of our talk here today. Is there anything else that you would like to share with potential viewers or listeners or fans? And like I think you said you're doing a podcast too. Maybe you can tell us about that.
Well, I was thinking about doing one. Right now, I'm not doing anything except focusing on launching my parenting support group. And I tend to get a little too sidetracked, and I need to follow through till the end on this one. So it would be a few more months before I would think about podcasting. I thought a podcast called Waking Up in Fairfield would be exciting because this is the location where some people in the Transcendental Meditation movement had started a university back in the 1970s. And the university is still here, and a lot of seekers come to Fairfield, Iowa, and including me. So I thought it would be exciting. But for the moment, though, I'm all about the parenting group. I got to focus.
Do you have a Facebook page that you've launched for the parenting support group?
I don't have a Facebook page for the parenting support group, but I do have one as a licensed mental health counselor. And I just haven't gotten to the point where I'm launching the page. I'm working with a marketing company, and they're kind of regimented. They tell me what to do next, and I have modules, and I'm developing. They tell me I'll be successful if I follow their methods, so I haven't got to the point of doing the Facebook group. However, you can find me on Facebook and follow my mental health counseling page, which puts interesting stuff up. I don't put much up in terms of Bashar right now on the mental health counseling page or publicly, mostly because I really haven't talked to too many people in the real world about it, including my family. I can just imagine having the discussion with my scientist-based family. They're all scientists. They're going to be like, so he's an alien, and you watch him. I'd be like, yeah, but he says some amazing truths, and it's really about the truths. I liked how Darryl said it doesn't matter if you believe that it's real and that it really is an alien, and that's absolutely true. You know, watching what Darryl does with Bashar, you can just tell that he doesn't care if anybody's buying in. Listen if it pleases you, if you're excited about it, and if it doesn't, don't. So that's cool. And I don't find everything Bashar says to be exactly my flavor either, and so I accept this and not that, and that's all right.
Well, any master teacher will tell us to, you know, inquire for yourself. You know, don't take anything I say at face value. To you know, you know, see how it hits you within yourself, in your intuition, in your soul, and how it resonates. And I would say that the message, you know, that Bashar brings is one of, you know, upliftment and empowerment, and a way to really take responsibility to clear our seeing, and that it's through looking at our beliefs, our negative beliefs particularly, and to take responsibility to address those, to look at those, and then transform those, so that we're not continually projecting the problem outside somewhere else, as if it were someone else's, you know, problem, or, you know, because that just, you know, that encourages victim mentality. We're not victims of circumstance. And I love, you know, one of his quotes is, you know, circumstances don't matter, only state of being matters.
Yeah, that would resonate with the TMers.
Yeah, so circumstances don't matter, only state of being matters.
I think Maharishi Mahesh Yogi said that like over and over and over again, almost in exactly those words. So
basically matter, it doesn't matter, because matter is what creates matter, you know, as in molecular structure particles. And like, you know, in the Bible it even says, you know, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word is. So therefore you speak into existence. When you say I am, and then whatever you put after that, that's what you're calling forth. That's what you're commanding presence for, the I am that I am, for your connection with all that is, with God source, and then you're bringing life to it through your words. So to basically, that's how matter materializes. So circumstances don't matter, only state of being matters. So am I being a presence of love, or am I being in a state of I'm a victim and they're doing something to me and look what just happened, and now I'm going to go find somebody else and share this story that's degrading and see if I can get some people enrolled and buy into this self, you know, destructive, you know, behavior thought form, which is really a negative belief that we can literally say, wait a minute, no, there is no victims, and what I don't like about what somebody's doing is showing me a judgment that I hold within myself. It's an opportunity for me to look at a negative belief within myself that I can clear by doing my own work. And that's, you know, the best thing we can do is to empower someone to see themselves clearer so they can do their work.
Okay.
Do you have anything you would like to add to that?
Well, one thing that springs to mind is that one of the reasons I really like the Bashar stuff is he focuses on the beliefs, on false beliefs. And in trauma work, we're taught that being traumatized, particularly at a young age, creates a false belief because children are egocentric. They believe everything happens because of them. And so if a child experiences a trauma, they think it's because they caused it, And if the thing is bad, obviously, they think it's because they're bad. And it can give rise to the belief that one is worthless. And so, although immediately, if the child wants to survive, they realize they can't go around saying, I'm worthless, I'm worthless, I'm worthless all the time. They can't be crying. And so they pull it together and they say, okay, well, what are the other kids doing? And I'll do like they do, and they bury it. And so they might get all the way through school without more traumas, and they've developed some skills and stuff like that, but then they get into a job or something, and they freeze at the moment when they need to be most effective, because this false belief will rear up and assert itself and say, no, you're not competent, because I've been here all along and you never processed this false belief. And the reason that you didn't process the false belief is you didn't think that it was okay to acknowledge that you have it, so you buried it. And so it's completely, I was very excited that Bashar talks about releasing false beliefs, because as a Satiryan therapist or an EMDR practitioner, that's precisely what I do. I help people get to their core traumas. And when they release them and have a transformation, as they would say in Satir parlance, because Satir transformational systemic therapy, and have a transformation, they actually, as Bashar says, they release the belief because they see that it's nonsensical, and all the energy it took to hold the belief is released, and then they get to have that for themselves, to do whatever they want with, to follow their highest excitement. And I never explain this to my clients, but they come back after they've had some releases, and they're like, wow, I have all this energy. My house is clean. I didn't even have to try. My house hasn't been clean in years, but I have all this energy now, and I just want to do stuff, so I do it, and it makes me happy. And even that will raise a person's energy level. So we're talking about all the same things, but we come in at different places depending what the client needs.
Well, I will comment, Bashar says that pain is resistance to the natural self. So that only makes sense, what you just said, that if as a person will clear some of their negative beliefs, self-worth issues within themselves, they will feel much lighter, because now they're no longer restrained by this denser energy, this denser vibration.
Well, it's not dense energy. They just have access to the real energy of the universe. They were taking all the energy that they had access to and using it to, oh, let's just shove that in the back of the closet. More energy it's going to take to hold it back there. And then once they let it out, they're like, oh, wow, I have all this energy now. And it's just, shoom, they raise up. It's fun.
Yeah, once you're no longer in your own way, not resisting. like Abraham says, get in the vortex, like basically to get in a place of allowing and not pushing against, so.
Allowing, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so it's nice that what you're doing, because you're helping people to unmask, the negative beliefs, literally, from the exercises, to go deeper into identifying what those beliefs are, because they don't surface until like a situation happens or they're triggered, or, I mean, that some can go buried for years. And
oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, they can go buried for decades, whole lifetimes. Are you frozen? Are we having internet problems? I think we might be having internet problems.
You cut out for a second there.
Yeah, I noticed that. Okay, you're back.
Okay, so let's just repeat that last part. We were talking about beliefs, negative beliefs, and how that can be masked, and bringing them forward through the work that you're doing.
Right. Yeah. Well, when we have a really toxic false belief, we know that we can't wear it on our sleeve when we go out in the world. So sometimes we put it in the back of the closet and we just forget about it, and then we pile more stuff on it to keep it from coming out. And then, but of course, it might come out when we need our competence most. And so that's how people wind up in my office sometimes. So anyway,
Nice. Well, this is exciting work that you're doing, and I want to congratulate you on acting on your highest excitement, and thank you for your time and coming together to be on Nourish Your Soul TV, where we have conversations in consciousness and talk about knowing thyself and making contact and connections, which your website is connectionis.com, so our listeners and viewers can go there to find you and to follow along. And I'll look forward to having you back on the show as a guest again and do a follow-up. And if there are parents that come to you, if you wouldn't mind asking them if they're willing to maybe, you know, come on for a testimonial, I'd love to give, you know, do some mini 5-10 minute little clips with maybe 2 or 3 parents and what they're, you know, gaining, you know, out of the work with you. That would be really nice too.
Oh, you bet. That'll be very generous, and I will offer that to them once we're up and active. Thanks for the opportunity, Michelle. I'm really grateful that you invited me to be interviewed on your show like this. It's pretty exciting for me, I have to be honest.
Well, it's my highest excitement just to connect people to what their message is and support them in following their heart's desire. And in order for us to help one another, we have to connect. And not only do we have to connect, but we have to make ourselves available so that people know what we're doing, what we're in service of, you know, what our gifts are, what our talents are. And then once we can put that out there, then people can kind of pick up the phone on the other end, connect, and you know, make the appropriate connections so that we can up-level and upgrade ourselves, our whole operating system, and just be more of ourselves and to heal ourselves into more love, you know, to be who we are. So we're all here together. We're all walking each other home together. So
definitely.
So I'll conclude for today's show. I want to thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and much love and many blessings to you. Stay tuned for more to come. Have a wonderful day. Namaste.